I'm Susan Wright, and I'm with the National Coalition for Sexual Freedom. I have been the media spokesperson for 21 years, and I actually started learning at the Leather Leadership Conference. Our first media training was with the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, and there was 60 of us at the second Leather Leadership Conference, packed into a room wanting to figure out, how do you talk to the media? What do you do when a reporter calls you and says, hey, your group, your event, what is this kink stuff? What are you doing? So we all sat around together and we paired off and we did the media training, and from there it has grown in the past 2 decades. The reason we were able to deal with 50 Shades of Grey is because there were so many voices that were trained and ready to speak out to the media and explain what BDSM really is, instead of what people assumed BDSM is. So media training can transform the world. That's why I'm here, to help people learn how to speak to the media in a way that's effective and gets the point across about our sexuality in a way that's non-sensational. So the way that you have to think about talking to the media is not the way that you talk to anybody else. Since we were in kindergarten, somebody asks you a question and you answer the question. You know, we're trained that way. When you're dealing with the media, that's not how it is. You have to keep control of what's happening. You have to decide what it is that you're trying to convey, not just to the reporter, but to all the millions of people behind the reporter. So that's why we deal with sound bites. And sound bites are a wonderful tool that you can use. You work it out beforehand. It's not something that you decide on the spur of the moment. That's an off-the-cuff remark that they will always include because it sounds spontaneous. It usually has something a little bit more sensational in it. But if you stick to your sound bites, the things that you work out ahead of time, your message, then what happens is they have to pull that message and include that in their article. So we provide, NCSF provides sound bites for people. We provide them on kink, we provide them on non-monogamy, and we encourage you to adjust those sound bites to be what your group or your project needs. Sometimes there's just no graceful way to segue into a sound bite. A reporter might say, all you people who eroticize violence, you don't repeat eroticize violence. What you do instead is say, the BDSM community is about educating adults to be responsible about their sexuality. That's a soundbite they can pull out. It doesn't include the eroticizing violence part, and it shows exactly who and what we are. So it's not a conversation like you're used to having with, you know, anybody else in your life, your friend, you know, your mentee, your coworker. If they ask about BDSM, you might really kind of want to go in depth and explain, you know, what it means to you. But with a reporter, that doesn't work. So you have to get into a different mindset. It's not an adversarial relationship. You don't have to go into it thinking that they're the enemy, but you do have to go into it thinking they're just translating what you're saying, transmitting what you're saying. And so you have to deal with it differently. So out of a half-hour interview, you will only see 1 or 2 quotes. So you can't expect that everything that you're explaining is going to be included in the piece. You also have to expect sometimes they pull out just part of a quote. So if you say too long of a sentence, a run-on sentence, they're just going to pull part of it for their story. So you don't really have any control over that. The only control that you have is what comes out of your mouth. So that's why you need to be prepared. When I first started this, I would actually print out my sound bites and have them in front of me. And as the reporter was asking me questions, I would look through my sound bites, land on one that kind of related to what they were asking, and got the message across that I wanted, and I would give that. My crisis moment came in 2002 when our community was attacked by the Concerned Women for America and the Americans for Truth about homosexuality. And in 2002, 2003, they attacked a series of BDSM conferences. In fact, it was so bad that the state of Missouri introduced legislation that would say that you could not do BDSM in the state of Missouri, right? So we had to fight them back in the media, with the radio, with print. I even went on the O'Reilly show. And so it was a baptism of fire. We'd had, just several years of experience dealing with this, but we turned the situation around. Those events, all 5 of them, went off exactly as planned. Everybody got the education that they needed because we were able to defend what we were doing in the media. So most of the people in your audience are not kinky. We didn't do it by explaining BDSM 101 to everyone. That would have probably gotten the state legislature to pass that law. And then we would have trouble in St. Louis and the rest of Missouri. What you do is you talk about our community. You talk about the fact that our educational groups are all volunteer, and we're just here to help other adults learn about their sexuality responsibly. You pull back, you universalize the question. You don't talk about your personal sex life. That's great for your friends, and that's great for a BDSM class, because we're sharing all of this information, and we really kind of want to get in deep. But when you're talking to the media, you have to sum it up. You have to create that little capsule of information. So that's why go to the NCSF website. We've got all the sound bites on there. You can actually pull the sound bites, you can pull the media interview tips, and you can craft what you need for yourself. And the most effective sound bites are ones that do not use kink language. If you don't use dungeon, all of it, whip, flog. If somebody tries to say, so you people who beat each other up, do you really do that? And if I said, well, we like to flog and we like to spank, well, that kind of makes the point for them. What you want to say instead is, everybody wants pleasurable stimulation. Some people want a little bit more intense sensation than others, just like extreme sports. Well, that makes the point. Everybody can think, oh yeah, skiing down a mountain. I wouldn't want to do that, without any sort of path to go in, or, dirt biking. I wouldn't want to do that, but I can understand how other people would. They would want the thrill, they would want the rush. That makes the point, whereas if you had said, sure, some people like to spank and flog, they like a little bit more extreme sensation, that doesn't make your point for you. So you don't have to think that you have to cover all the topics. What you're really trying to create is an entry point with what you're doing, to open the access so that people can find some way that they relate to it. When you're dealing with a media outlet, the first thing you do when a reporter calls you is you find out who it is. Who are they with? Are they with a radio show? I love doing radio shows because it's more stream of consciousness like this. You'll get everything in context. And they'll have a little whip sound in the background as you speak. And they'll be making jokes. But they're trying to entertain their audience. In those cases, I get a little bit looser because I know what I'm saying is in context. It's not going to be pulled out. And then at the other extreme, you have live television. When you're preparing for a live television show, you have to have everything in your mind. You have to be ready to speak on point, and you're going to be extremely nervous. But in between that is a wide range of things. You want to find out, is this Vice and Broadly? That's sort of media outlets that can be very favorable to us, but sometimes they can sensationalize what we're doing. Is it the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times? You're going to want to present your material in a different way. Is it Jezebel? That tends to be very friendly, but they also really go much more in depth into the community issues. So you have to be prepared to be asked the really tough questions. By knowing the media outlet, that's setting the stage for the interview that you're going to have. So it's very important. You also have to be prepared. Sometimes a reporter will be very friendly and you'll feel like this is going really well, I'm getting everything across, and the article comes out and the article itself is really great, but they've put a different headline on the top. They've put something really sensational on the top. So you cannot control what they're going to do, you can only control what you do. And that's why don't answer their exact question. Think about what you want to say. Keep repeating your sound bites. Sometimes what they do is they ask you the same question over and over again, trying to pull it out in a different way. Well, what do you mean by that? And tell me more. You don't want to tell them more. Almost every other situation in your life, you're going to want to tell them more when somebody asks that question. With a reporter, you don't. That's why actually attorneys make wonderful spokesperson. If you're looking for a spokesperson for your group, kind of look around at the lawyers and see if anybody's willing to be the spokesperson for your group, because they have a tendency to just say what needs to be said, and plus they know what if you say is going to get you into trouble, and you really don't want to make your situation worse when you're talking to the media by saying something that could be taken to the city council, for example, or to the vice squad in your city. So you have to be non-chatty. Sometimes people think the best person for the spokesperson is, we'll give it to Susan. She talks a lot. No, what you want to do is give it to the person who is very thoughtful about what they say, will stop and think before they speak. So universalize the questions, don't repeat nasty or inflammatory statements, and if you need a moment, just ask them to clarify. Seize control of the interview. Ask them a question. A lot of times that really helps to find out where are they coming from with this story. You can get kind of a behind-the-scenes look at what they and the editor were discussing and where they're going with this, so that then you can provide a soundbite that will counter what it is that they're trying to do. And it also can let you know if you need to just bring the interview to a close if this is really not going well. It tends to be nowadays, we don't have as much crisis media management. It's more lifestyle reporting. And there's a big difference between that. Crisis is Fox News, and that's when you're standing in front of a television live on the evening news trying to defend your local kink event. But since 50 Shades of Grey, it's become predominantly lifestyle. So they really do want to dive more into what BDSM is. And you're going to be very tempted to do a BDSM 101. Don't hit the kidneys, you spank on the sweet spot. That's not the information that we need to be getting out to the vanilla people. We need to be getting information out so that they'll tolerate us and so that they'll become more accepting, hopefully eventually, of who we are, and will not try to stop us from having this education. We also think it's a really great idea if you use names of organizations like National Coalition for Sexual Freedom, like American Association for Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. Reporters love it when you can be a resource and actually kind of refer them to other groups and other individuals who may want to speak to them. They'll come back to you again and again. And if that's what you're trying to develop is a relationship with your local media, that's a great thing to do. They may not even quote you. They may come to you for the information, get the background information they need, which will build a good story. That's the most important thing for us as a community. We also say, don't say or do anything you're uncomfortable with. I was doing an interview with Newsweek magazine, and I came in my black suit and pants and my nice, beautiful high heel shoes, and they kept trying to hand me a riding crop and go stand next to this spanking bench, put your hand on it. And I'm like, no, first of all, I'm a sub. I'm not gonna hold a riding crop. And I'm so glad I didn't. I would have looked, completely wrong and uncomfortable. So I judged by my feelings. It just didn't feel right, and I said no. Well, this team was persistent. The photographer especially. Sometimes photographers, they want that shot. They want that image that captures what they envision this means. So they kept taking pictures, and eventually they moved in and they started taking close-ups. And so I kicked my shoes off, and I was standing there on my bare feet, my little painted toes on the carpet, and then they backed up. The photographer backed up, and I said, "Oh, can you see the whole thing?" And they said, "Oh, no." So what happens, Newsweek comes out, and I'm standing there on a carpet with my bare feet and my shoes right next to me. It was the off-the-cuff moment. It was the thing that I didn't want them to see, So that's what they wanted to see. So you have to really guard yourself and make sure that you're not pushed in a way that you don't want. I think the same thing goes for the classic image now of polyamory is people sitting on a bed. The whole family sitting on a bed. And you know what's become the cliche image that goes with all the polyamory articles? It's the picture of the feet underneath the covers. And it's got all the different feet, and it looks like feet are facing different directions, so they're actually having sex. That is not useful for us. That does not convey what polyamory is. And it doesn't evoke in people's minds when they see it what we want them to think of, which is love and freedom and communication and trust. So if they want to take a picture of your poly family, sit at the dining room table, have a meal. That shows family. You know, think beforehand what it is that the image that you want to convey, not the image that they want you to convey. So along with that, I know it, you think it doesn't need to be said, don't do anything sexual on camera. We used to have reporters in the very beginning, they would come in and we want to film your class, you know, and we actually even set up mock classes at one point, and, you know, got people in who are willing to have the back of their heads filmed. And you know what, even the most sensitive reporter who did that, it didn't work. Because, you know what, half the people in the world are just not kinky. They're just not. Now, I think half the people are. I think we have a lot more people out there who are kinky than we think. But the ones who are not, seeing an image of that, they cannot understand it. They don't feel an attraction to it. It actually kind of turns them off. A picture is not worth 1,000 words with BDSM. If you see a dominatrix, or if you see a paddle hitting somebody's butt and the flesh kind of rippling, we think of the connection between those two people. We think of, wow, I haven't had a paddling scene in so long. That really makes me want to do that again. You know, we're thinking of all the positive. Somebody who is not kinky, who is not hardwired to feel that, looks at that and goes, no. And that's what they're left with in their mind, is no. You want to leave them with, dress in a way that makes them relate to you. I don't wear pearls. On the O'Reilly show, I wore pearls. I looked like a soccer mom. I really did. In fact, some people said that afterwards. I was like, yes, that was what I was going for, soccer mom. And wear a blazer. Don't wear the bustier. Don't wear the things that are cliched, that once somebody sees it, all they think about is the stereotypes. I think what I said on O'Reilly, people don't remember. They don't remember what I said. What they remember is the fact that I looked comfortable. I looked happy. I was like, yes, we're doing this. Yes, this is important, and this is worthwhile that adults are teaching other adults how to be responsible. We're volunteering our time. We're giving of ourselves, and we've created a community. And they saw my happy face, and they saw nothing to worry about here. Nothing to be afraid of. This person is like me, and I understand this person is passionate about what they're saying and believes what they're saying is true, and my community doesn't have to fear about this. And that's the ultimate goal of being a media spokesperson, is to destigmatize who we are, to reach out, to form some bridges, and we can do it. We proved it with 50 Shades of Grey. We've really transformed the way that people have viewed us. And it was the voices that spoke out that did that. It was not the movie. It was all the people speaking out around that movie and educating the world about who we really are and what we really do. So keep that in mind when you're talking about BDSM or non-monogamy to any kind of reporter. NCSF is here to help you. We really stand behind you and support you, especially if it's a crisis situation. So never fear. Don't worry about talking to the media. It actually is really a lot of fun, and you can really make a difference if you decide to do that. I want to thank you all for coming, and I really appreciate your attention. Thank you very much.